Hi, my name is Chance Eaton. I'm the Chief Learning Officer here at Big Skyway, and for today's little learning nugget, I want to talk to you about change management. And a great entry point to change management is to talk about the change that we personally go through when we lose a loved one, specifically grieving. Now, there's an author in the late 60s, Kubler-Ross, that was a Swiss-American psychiatrist, and she wrote a book called In Death and Dying, and she talked about the different stages of grieving. And she wasn't the first to talk about this. There were more authors in the 40s, but she talked about, when we first lose that loved one, we have this denial, and that's followed up by maybe some anger, and then maybe some bargaining, some kind of depression, and then some acceptance. We eventually move into our new reality. Well, this is very applicable also to change in general, not just grieving. And so I like to use this model when we talk about change management in organizations. When there's some kind of change in your organization, you got to recognize that people go through this. There's some kind of loss. We've taken people out of their natural comfort zone, and there's some kind of strain and pain that comes with that. So I want you to know that people can go through this. Now, it can be a major change or even a minor change. A major change might be some major capital improvement, a merger and acquisition, something that's very significant, and it's so different. People are going to go through some kind of process like this. It can be kind of, less major. It can be, a reorganization, or even minor things like a new policy that says you can't have plants at your desk anymore, or we're doing away with Blue Jean Friday, or something like that, or we're moving your cubicle. You got to recognize and appreciate that people are being taken out of their comfort zone, and they're going through some kind of grieving process, some kind of change process. So I think the very first thing to do is recognize that this is happening anytime we change in the organization. Now, if you're the architect of change, if you're part of that leadership team, you're not going through that process because you've already built a bridge across it. You've already explored it and talked about it. You've got to appreciate that people might be going through some grieving themselves. So that's the first part. Now, once you recognize that, how do you communicate the change throughout your organization? And so one thing we find helpful is to talk about the 5 W's, right? Logically and emotionally. So logically, be able to sit down with the team and say, here's what's happening. Here's why it's happening. Here's when it's happening. Here's where it's going to take us. And here's when it's happening. Those 5 W's. And if it's larger change, something that's more significant, like a reorganization or a merger and acquisition, you also want to include that emotional piece of here's what this is, right? Trying to help people feel safe, right? Talking to their subconscious and that emotional part. Here's what's happening. Here's why it's happening. Here's why it's so important, and where it's going to take us, why it's going to make us a better organization, when and who's involved, etc. The more you can talk about the 5 W's logically and emotionally, you're going to, it's not going to be quite as steep. There might still be some disruption, but not as extreme. So I find that to be very helpful, to build a script based off those 5 W's. And next, you need to be able to communicate that throughout your organization. And a couple tips here are multiple mediums. Make sure you talk to the folks about change. It's videos, it's newsletters, it's emails, it's one-on-ones, it's team meetings, it's all employee meetings. Keep coming at it from lots of different angles so people really fully understand what's at stake. Another tip is repeat. We always say 7 times, the bigger the change, more often, but continue talking about the change and why that is. Some people hear it the first time, some people hear it the 7th time, but that constant repetition. And then thirdly, simplicity in your messaging. You can't make it overly complex. People just need to really understand the essence of something. So to cascade change throughout the organization, try to make it simple, repeat it in multiple mediums. And then at the end here, just appreciate that people go through grieving when you change something at work. And our job as leaders is to help people understand why that is, so we can get up here and find success, because that's why we did the change in the first place. So I hope that helps. Have yourselves a great rest of the day and take care.